Kazuhito Harumi is a teen obsessed with books, particularly those authored by Shinobu Akiyama, his favorite author. After shielding a customer, Kazuhito is shot and killed in a cafe during a heist. Kazuhito is reincarnated as a Dachshund dog and brought to a pet shop. After a week of not being able to read a book, Harumi is adopted by a mystery girl named Kirihime Natsuno, whom Kazuhito later learns is the customer he defended during the heist, and whose real identity is Shinobu Akiyama. While in Kirihime's care, Kazuhito learned about Kirihime's sadistic side as well as her positive qualities, as well as her ability as a martial artist. Kirihime goes to Kazuhito's former apartment with Kazuhito after phoning someone and asking for his wallet and address. Kirihime and Kazuhito arrive at the latter's former flat after being ridiculed for wearing a pet collar and scaring and ignoring passerbys. Kirihime deduced that Kazuhito's killer is presently hiding in the latter's own flat. The latter is revealed to be true, and Kirihime and Kazuhito pursue Kazuhito's killer until they reach a skyway, where the killer reveals that he has read all of Kirihime's books and has become a fan. After a farce, the killer was on the point of death. However, Kazuhito pulls the man down and saves him, explaining that he won't murder him since he is a book lover as well, and that killing him will just tarnish Kazuhito's desire to read again. Kirihime, on the other hand, is opposed to this since she feels responsible for Kazuhito's death. Kirihime breaks down in tears as Kazuhito soothes her by informing her that after reading her novels, he has discovered Kirihime's true personality. Kirihime began to have feelings for Kazuhito after that. Kazuhito encounters Kirihime's masochistic editor, Suzuna Hiragi, after waking up from a nightmare, and she informs Kirihime of a slasher now on the loose. Kirihime learns more about the slasher occurrences from Suzuna and decides to launch an inquiry over her sister's resistance, after torturing Kazuhito for recognizing he was the cause of her writer's block. In the course of their inquiry, Kirihime meets Maxi Akizuki, a competing novelist and popular idol. Maxi was dragged by one of her guys before the two authors clashed. After Kazuhito had deduced that all of the slasher victims had purchased Kirihime's books, another occurrence occurs, which the duo investigates. While Kirihime pursues the alleged slasher, Kazuhito falls into a trap. When Kazuhito awoke, he was back in his old flat, where he ran across his younger sister, Madoka Harumi. As Kirihime loses the alleged slasher during her pursuit, Madoka acts strangely towards Kazuhito, whom he initially assumed was aware that he was now a dog, but isn't, as demonstrated by her inability to understand Kazuhito in his present canine form, but still considers him to be her late brother. Kirihime takes Kazuhito back to her house and interrogates him about his abductee while Madoka is out. After convincing himself that Madoka is his sister, Kirihime shows Kazuhito an item that the alleged slasher lost during the chase, Shinobu Akiyama's book, which Kazuhito deduces that the slasher has a hatred against its author, whom Kirihime guesses to be Madoka, much to Kazuhito's surprise. The following day, the duo resumes their inquiry, and Suzuna informs Kirihime that someone has been shredding her books, which turns out to be Madoka. Back at her house, Kirihime explains that Madoka's grievance stems from her books, which she believes were the cause of her late brother's death. Madoka breaks into Kirihime's home and kidnaps Kazuhito after he pledged to assist Kazuhito in confronting his sister. Kirihime confronts Madoka, the author she believes is responsible for his brother's death, and asks if her recent activities would have made her brother happy knowing he is one of her fans. Madoka then leaps from Kirihime's apartment building, pulling Kazuhito behind her. Madoka and Kirihime conduct a duel with their respective weapons, Madoka's multi-purpose electrical knife, Tuna Eater, and Kirihime's enormous pair of shears, Hasajiro, after lamenting their acts. Madoka converts her knife into a cannon and shoots Kirihime after Kirihime gains the upper hand. However, Kirihime was able to block the bullet, allowing Madoka to accept her defeat, and the two become friends. Kirihime and Kazuhito are surprised to learn that Madoka isn't the alleged slasher. Instead, it was Kirihime's editor, Suzuna, who claimed that she did everything for Kirihime's benefit in order to help her overcome her writer's block. Kirihime then appears, having been informed of Suzuna's plans from the beginning, and claims to have already conquered her slump, as evidenced by her throwing many written drafts into the air, which Suzuna retrieves while sitting. After advising Suzuna to be kind to her from now on, Kirihime bids Madoka farewell the next day, and Suzuna reveals that she had already killed the true slasher before Kirihime and Kazuhito's inquiry, much to the former's chagrin. Yayoi, the younger sister of Honda bookseller's clerk Sakura, informs Kazuhito that they may be leaving the city. In her apartment, Kazuhito tells Kirihime about his first visit to the bookshop, which leads to Kazuhito being harassed by Kirihime for repeatedly calling her flat-chested while she was sleeping. Yayoi screams out of the bookstore with Kazuhito, only to discover that it is truly closing. Yayoi and Kazuhito market the bookstore around the neighborhood in hopes of saving it, but they run into Maxi. Later, while attempting to comfort a tearful Yayoi, Kirihime enters and, threatening Kazuhito, instructs Yayoi to return home, which she refuses, afraid her sister would despise her. Yayoi returns to the bookstore, however, and apologizes to her sister. Sakura then disputes that their store is closing, claiming that Yayoi misread it owing to her parents' regular fights. After Sakura reassures Yayoi that they will not be separated, Kazuhito feels grateful to Kirihime for adopting him, but this feeling is quickly dashed when Kirihime taunts Kazuhito into pushing him. Kirihime asks Kazuhito to assist her in the search for her misplaced bra. Suzuna joins the search after Kirihime punishes Kazuhito for trying to get her smell, while Kazuhito retreats to read more books. When Kirihime discovers him, the two dispute and Kazuhito inadvertently discovers Kirihime's breast accession kit, resulting in Kirihime's punishment. Kazuhito discovers Kirihime's bra under his blanket as Kirihime and Suzuna continue their search. Kazuhito intends to dispose of Kirihime's bra because he fears that Kirihime would torture him. Meanwhile, Kirihime is on the lookout for Kazuhito, who she believes is following her. Later, while attempting to bury Kirihime's bra, Kazuhito discovers a maid. The maid eventually discovers Kazuhito and seeks to murder him. Kazuhito nearly gets hit by a truck after crossing a busy roadway, but Kirihime saves him just in time. As Kirihime and the maid prepare to fight, the maid hears someone selling roasted potatoes and decides to postpone the battle. Kirihime later discovers her misplaced bra on Kazuhito. Kazuhito deduces that Kirihime loves dogs after noticing a little dog motif on her bra. In an attempt to imitate a dog, Kazuhito was chased by Kirihime, who was being followed by someone, whom Kirihime invited, arrive at a hot spring inn. Kirihime became frustrated after settling in, since she is frequently thwarted in her advances to Kazuhito by her acquaintances, as well as the latter's ignorance of them. When Kazuhito returns, he observes that the innkeepers are acting oddly around them. The inn was closed the next day, with Kirihime remarking that she and Kazuhito will return to the inn alone sometime. Kirihime and Kazuhito discovered an extra book in the former's library, a book by an author named Hotaru Fujimaki. As she continued to be harassed by the mobs and her stalker, Kazuhito recognizes the book's likeness to Kirihime after examining it. In order to discover more, Kirihime summons Suzuna, who informs them of the author's narrative, but without the author's name. Kirihime then resolves to meet the author personally, and when traveling through an abandoned warehouse, she and Kazuhito are ambushed by the same horde that attacked them at the inn. When Kazuhito awoke, he and Kirihime were confronted by Shuzan Oshawa, the stalker of the latter and the father of Hotaru Fujimaki, who had snuck the book into her apartment. Despite his objections, Shuzan confesses that he was merely carrying out her daughter's responsibility of giving her book to Kirihime while being probed. The trio understands Shuzan isn't the one behind the mob incidents due to a slip of the tongue. Kirihime and Kazuhito go to Shuzan's high school to meet with Hotaru Fujimaki, after receiving an address from him. Hami Ashua approaches Kazuhito as he is in the library. Kazuhito once saw a text written by a timid Hami Ashua before his death. Hami promises to become an author with Kazuhito's encouragement, and the work Kazuhito reads. Back in the present, Kazuhito discovers that Hami is Hotaru Fujimaki, an anagram of his own name. Hami aspires to vanquish Kirihime in order to keep her pledge to Kazuhito. Hami confronts Kirihime via the school's PA system. By agreeing not to use violence to resolve their dispute, Kirihime and Hami agreed to hold the writing contest, with the winner being the person who completes a 100-page work first. Kirihime, much to Hami's amazement, was able to endure all of Hami's deceptive tricks and is still ahead in their battle. Hami, on the other hand, employs her most advanced technique, Bryanak, in which readers perform the author's will by reading specific keywords in a book. Sadly for Hami, Kirihime was still able to win the challenge despite finishing it with her tongue. Kirihime pushes Hami to keep writing using her own strength and to finish the novel Kazuhito reads after the competition. As a result of this, Hami appears to have become Kirihime's writing apprentice, as Kirihime utilizes Bryanak against Kazuhito to lunge at her. Madoka is once again assigned to prepare curry for Kazuhito, much to his dismay. However, Kazuhito felt at rest for the time being after smelling Madoka's cooking, until he discovered that Madoka is actually making a blue-colored curry and fled to Honda booksellers. There, Kazuhito admires Sakura's method of gratifying her customers by providing them with books that match their preferences. Maxi's men appeared out of nowhere and bought all of Momiji Himehagi's and Shinobu Akiyama's books from the bookstore. After that, Kazuhito is pursued by Moribisachi, a singing maid who also works for Mojimi Himehagi. As they begin to fight, Kirihime appears to shelter Kazuhito, and Maxi intervenes by challenging Kirihime to a renowned writing challenge known as the 9-Story Tower Writing Contest. Maxi, though, is once again dragged by his shoulders, and their competition is called off, much to Kazuhito's chagrin. Later at the bookstore, Hami informs Sakura of her crucial decision as an author, as well as Madoka's enrollment in the former's school, and promises to carry on her late brother's legacy. Despite his pride in his sister's progress, Kazuhito accepts to consume Madoka's curry. Kazuhito finally gave in and ate Madoka's rainbow-colored curry. Suzuna inquires if Kirihime will now make her public debut and discuss other future plans after being rejected on her way in. Suzuna also gets Kirihime's clothing ready for her book signing after her debut. Madoka and Hami engage in the costume fun after experimenting with a few outfits. Suzuna was ready to make Kirihime wear a school bikini when Kirihime cuts her off instead, much to Suzuna's delight. Suzuna eventually coerces Kirihime into drinking in order to boost her image, or rather to have her punish her even more. As a result, Kirihime's personality shifts to one that is friendlier and warmer, much to Kazuhito and Suzuna's dismay. Kirihime misinterpreted Kazuhito's statement that breast size doesn't matter as a proposal, as Kirihime fantasizes about their wedding ceremony, honeymoon, and children's future, much to Kazuhito's chagrin. Later, as Kirihime prepares to sleep with Kazuhito, Kirihime vomits on Kazuhito. Kirihime returns to normal the next day, offering to bathe Kazuhito and stating that she always treats him with kindness. While asking for his opinions on her work in the epilogue, Kazuhito instead chastises Kirihime for not finishing the final volume of his favorite series, prompting Kirihime to pursue Kazuhito once more. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you in the next one.